Hello, Weston residents. I'm Don Benson, high school history teacher and member of the WA's negotiations team. And I'm here the night before we begin mediation to make one final appeal for you to support the teachers in what is a fair, honorable, and competitive contract. And what I mean by this is something that honors the outstanding performance that the teachers have delivered for the Weston Public Schools, something that's fair to the Consumer Price Index as reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and something that's competitive to attract new teachers in what is becoming a critical labor shortage for educators. And to do that, I want to follow up on Ed McLaughlin's presentation of last night. And during this presentation, Ed talked about what it would cost to actually achieve something that was honorable, fair, and competitive. And so he presented this table, and it showed the fact that a 2% increase has already been budgeted. And he asked what it would achieve to budget above 2% and the potential tax burden. And what you see is a 3% increase would cost an additional $244,000. That number is derived from about the 244 full-time equivalent teachers we have, each earning about $100,000 a year. And that leaves a potential tax burden for the 3,700 households in Weston of $66 per year. A 4% increase would be a tax burden of $132, and a 5% increase, which would cost $733,000, would cost the taxpayer $166. But I mentioned this as a potential tax burden because last night we talked about something called free cash. And as I mentioned last night, free cash is a little bit of a misnomer because it is cash that is derived from the Weston taxpayer. But why it's called free is because it's really unanticipated revenue. And what that means is reported by the Division of Local Services, actual receipts in excess of revenue estimates. So a person gets rid of their old car, buys a new car, and their excise tax goes from $150 to $800. That's would go into the free cash total. It could be unspent amounts in department budget line items. I'll talk more about that on our next slide. But things that plan to buy books, the books didn't get purchased, and that becomes free cash. You can see here the free cash totals for Weston over the past 5 years, from 4.37 million in 2018 to last year's 2.73 million. Now, I want to call attention to some financial statements concerning free cash. In a moment, I'll apply those to our negotiations timetable. But the Finance Committee in a meeting on March 3rd, 2022 said the current free cash available is about 2.7 million. The current budget proposal spends about 2.1 million of this amount, leaving 600,000 in reserve. I'd have you note that 4 of the 5 current school committee members were in attendance at this time to know that the town had 600,000 in free cash. The report later that year of the Finance Committee to the 2022 annual town meeting noted that cash reserves were 11.2 million, which included the 2.7 million in free cash. And this year's town manager's report, Appendix 8, Consolidated Fiscal Year 2022 Revenue Projections, notes that there's a projected $2.1 million in free cash. So let's now apply this to the timeline of our negotiations. That year in 2022, the Finance Committee told us of the 600,000 unspent in free cash. In June of 2022, the year the CPI printed at 9% annualized, the school committee delivered its initial offer of 3% over 3 years. In October 24th, at that school committee meeting, the schools returned and notified the town that it was returning $1.4 million. This was derived from savings from retirees and replacements with less experienced teachers, unfilled positions. We believe that this money is going to become this year's free cash as part of that projected 2.1 million. We also note just a few weeks after the schools returned this money to the town, the school committee made its last and best offer of 5.75% over 3 years. So let's think about now what this free cash could be used for and how it would make a difference in achieving a fair, honorable, and competitive contract. As I mentioned, the cost to Weston, if a tax was needed, would be $132. But one really isn't needed because of the free cash. So what could have happened? The free cash could have been applied here. $600,000 would have enabled a 2022-2023 salary increase of 4.5%. Instead, the school committee delivered 1%. We know further that we're getting more free cash for this year. 2% has already been budgeted, and that money could be used to deliver a fair and reasonable salary offer for 2023 and 2024. So in conclusion, we believe that a fair, an honorable, and a competitive contract can be achieved within the existing budget framework. And we're hopeful that we'll gain your support in helping us achieve that. So again, we're seeking something honorable, fair, competitive, and if you want the same, please reach out to the school committee. Contact them by 3 o'clock tomorrow and let us get this negotiations over. Thank you again for your support, and we hope that we can deliver some good news on Thursday.